Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is a new video concept for me. So if you haven't seen or haven't watched my Setiabudi 13 true crime video, I suggest you watch that first because for today we will be reading and reacting to other people's thoughts, opinions, and theories on the Setiabudi 13 case that we discussed on Tuesday. Now, I will be doing this from now on for every single case that I talk about on this channel. So, as I've mentioned in my previous video, Tuesdays are still for true crime videos, while Thursdays or Fridays will be for the reaction video for theories for discussion. Now, if you have your own theories, please do not hesitate to leave a comment below. I would love to talk to you guys about these cases as well, and maybe include your comment on the next video. Now, having that said, let's go ahead and talk about the Satia Budi 13 case once again, this time with other people's opinions and theories. All right, so I will be reading these comments from my iPad, so that is why I will be looking this way. I feel like medical knowledge is an extremely dangerous thing to assume in a case like this because it can lead to tunnel vision extremely quickly. Mostly because when I heard the description of this man's remains, I didn't think surgeon, I thought butcher. And a professional butcher would definitely have the ability to single handedly dismantle a body in a couple of hours without damaging the internal organs or leaving anything on the bones, and hide the evidence of it. This sort of thing could even explain how the boxes were left so discreetly, if safe from some sort of delivery vehicle, and possibly why no one seemed to know the victim. Maybe he was poor or from the lower class or only recently moved to the area, and why no similar crime was ever reported. If this was a crime of passion of some kind, followed by not a mutilation but a disposal. I wonder if some sort of line of thinking like that got overlooked by the original investigators, and that was a part of the reason this poor man never got peace or even his name back. You know what? This comment makes a lot of sense. I mean, they were the experts who investigated this case decades prior were very quick to come up with the conclusion that whoever did this was a group of professionals with some sort of medical knowledge or background. That's right. I mean, it's not just them who could do something like this. It's not just someone with a medical background who could clean flesh off of the bone that neatly and that perfectly. It does make a lot of sense. It could be a butcher because if you are a true crime fan, you would know that there are a lot of dismemberments, or there are a lot of cases wherein the victim was dismembered or mutilated and it had been done professionally, not by someone with a medical degree, but a butcher. I mean, it is their job. It is something that they do on a day-to-day basis. So this is very likely as well. Okay, so let's move to the next one. Okay, so this person has a few theories of their own. There's actually some details and theories missing on this case, and it's very hard to find on the news. 1. The police never revealed the suspected ethnicity of the victim. Back then, there was actually a theory that the victim wasn't Indonesian at all, but a Vietnamese refugee, and that's why it was really hard for them to identify the victim. 2. From 1981 to 1982 was Indonesia's political year. At the time, some people raised the issue of PKI, an Indonesian Communist Party's resurgence and its affiliation with current President Suharto. The case was theorized to spark this issue, however, it was deemed a failure. Suharto was too powerful and was very capable to shut down the issue. Number 3, The perpetrator was theorized to have been found and caught but wasn't given any civil trial at all, but was instead directly executed. I got these theories above from my late apartment manager. He lived in Setiabudi area for over 60 years, and during the case he was a security guard in one of the buildings near the Garuda Mataram building. Ooh. Okay, so this is actually quite interesting as well. I did mention in the previous video on Tuesday that this man's fingerprints, the victim's fingerprints were tested, but they did not find any match on the Indonesian database. So it's also very, very possible that this was, like this comment mentioned, a Vietnamese refugee. It's also possible, I think, that not just Vietnamese, but he could be from another Southeast Asian country, because a lot of Southeast Asians do look similar to one another. So very interesting. And yeah, this person was able to talk to his or her late apartment manager who lived in the area for 60 years. And he wasn't just a local from the area, he was also a security guard in one of the nearby buildings. So I think this is very interesting as well. The perpetrator was theorized to have been found and caught, but wasn't given any civil trial at all, but instead was directly executed. Now, when it comes to this third theory, I personally don't think that this is likely. That's just my personal opinion because the Indonesian police, the Indonesian authorities have been not ridiculed, but they've been judged and they've been put under scrutiny because they still haven't been able to solve this case after 4 decades. So I think if they caught the perpetrator, they would let everyone know. They would make the announcement. They would say, "Hey, we finally caught him after 40 years or after how many years this was." But I don't think that they would hide this fact and just secretly execute the perpetrator or perpetrators and never let anyone know. I think that's highly unlikely. And that's just my 2 cents about number three. All the evidence led to the area where the remains were found. The police should have also looked into its residences. Now, I am not sure if there were houses or private residences in this area because, according to all of the videos that I watched and the articles that I've read regarding this case, that area was a business district that was, of course, that would be busy, of course, during business hours. Now, if that is the case, if it's not a residential area at all, this would mean that the perpetrator, because these boxes were left there in the morning, and if there are no houses, if this was not a residential area at all, or at least during the time, it would have been possible that none of these businesses or offices were open or occupied at the time. And that is also why there are no eyewitnesses. Anyway, let's move to the next theory. There was a theory that mentioned that the murder motive was to give warning to some special group and that the person that was murdered was a mafia member because there is no way that people knew him. I mean, I did mention this in the video. I did discuss this very briefly that there were theories surrounding the mafia as well. And I guess this would make sense as to why no one would come forward. Maybe someone did know something about this case, but they were too scared if this was mafia related. So, yeah, very interesting and quite possible as well. The interesting thing about Indonesia before 1998 is people would always connect every cold case to Suharto in some way. So, Suharto, this was their former president. It's either he's getting rid of criminals through the rumored infamous Penembak Mysterious or gunman operation, or the killer was somehow backed up by him or his cronies. And you couldn't deny the possibility because he's just that terrifyingly powerful. So, a lot of the speculations or theories that I've read believe that this case, as well as a lot of other unsolved cases, are somehow connected to their former president Suharto. I mean, it's not impossible, of course, but I am not really familiar with this president, or how he ran the country during his term. If you are from Indonesia, please let me know, or please enlighten us, why this is the case, why it is theorized so much that these cases have anything to do with the former president. I would really love to know why. My conspiracy theory is, what if it turns out that the victim was not an Indonesian but a foreigner who came to Indonesia illegally? Many foreigners have similar physical characteristics to Indonesians, especially Southeast Asian countries such as Malaysia, the Philippines, and others. That's why his fingerprints were not recorded in the biometrics. Plus, of course, Indonesia's biometric system at the time was not as sophisticated as it is now. As mentioned, the perpetrator is thought to be someone who is skilled or clever in carrying out surgery, and perhaps it is true that the perpetrator wanted his crime to be known to many people and at the same time challenged the parties. The authorities left the head, palms, and feet because they knew that the victim would not be able to be identified using these three body parts because the victim was not an Indonesian citizen. Yeah, so we did discuss this earlier in the video, but yeah, it is highly possible that the victim, this John Doe, was not from Indonesia at all. And this person makes a lot of sense, saying that this could have been a foreigner who came to Indonesia illegally. I mean, a possible that's possibly the reason why his fingerprints were not in the database, did not match anyone in the database, and that's why no one knew him. I mean, hundreds of people checked and looked at his remains to see if this was one of their missing loved ones, and no one ever came forward to claim that they knew this person. So yeah, high probability of this person, this John Doe, being from another country. Also very possible that this person came to Indonesia illegally, and that's why this man remains a John Doe up until now. However, I mean, maybe at the time, this was during the 80s, it's possible that they had this it was possible that at the time this case did not reach international traction. However, if this man really is from another Southeast Asian country, this case has already been talked about worldwide, and the composite sketch, I guess, has been seen by millions of people at this point. So, my question is, why has no one came forward yet? I mean, no one has came forward. No one, up until today, we don't know who this man is. I needed to take a sip because this is quite a long one. Doctor, it's highly improbable. To separate meat from bones, special skills are needed. Not even butchers can do this well. Even for chickens, chicken butchers are different from boneless or fillet chicken meat makers. I know because I was in the broiler chicken business. The location where the cutting takes place must have waste disposal conditions because if it is done in a house, a hotel, or somewhere similar, there will definitely be complaints of odors from the surrounding area. It is normal for perpetrators not to be caught, but the identity of the victim with all the details, his prints and face, that are still there is an important clue. An important question that has never been published is whether the victim's skin was still there in sheet form or was it chopped up along with the flesh. My conclusion for the most logical hypotheses are: the perpetrator is part of the slaughterhouse where all cutting equipment is available, blood waste is disposed of. If the skin is removed before being cut, then there is a possibility that the perpetrator does not know and does not recognize that they are boneless like a human. If the skin is still attached to the flesh, it is likely that the perpetrator asked, either under pressure or with certain promises, his subordinates to do this. The identity of the victim is not revealed even though all identification components are still complete. The victim is 18 to 21 years old, where 18 is the age when fingerprint recording begins. The perpetrator knew that the victim did not have an ID card, and generally in the 80s, people tended to be lazy with the KTP bureaucracy. By not having an ID card, it means that the victim is not currently working officially or studying. Chances to be recognized only from family, but no family ever appeared. The possibility is that the perpetrator is close to the victim and most likely still in the same family. Why did I eliminate the possibility of this perpetrator to be a doctor, let alone a private one? Simple. Because the only person who can cut bone properly is a surgeon. And surgeons don't have boneless skills. Now that makes a lot of sense. It does. It really does. Um so yeah. I hold on. Okay, so this is going to be the last comment that I will be reading before we talk about my thoughts and opinions. Well, we've been talking about it the entire video, but I'm just going to give you guys a recap. Okay, so for the last comment, this is this person's theories. The body found was not an Indonesian citizen. This is the reason why his data is not registered in our system. Or maybe they were too young, so they haven't been registered in the system yet. The perpetrator is a surgeon or could be a doctor who is experienced in the field of surgery or human anatomy. The perpetrator has a narcissistic personality disorder because he deliberately disposed of the victim's body so that many people would know him or that many people would be curious about him. It could be that the body was deliberately purchased while it was already dead for the purposes of experimental progress in the world of medicine slash forensics in Indonesia. Now, this murder was deliberately carried out to reduce the level of public confidence in the competence of the police in handling a major case. Interesting. Now, to be honest, a lot of the comments that we read are quite similar. So, people have very similar theories on this case. And honestly, I do as well. But I just found this really interesting that this person thinks that it's possible that the body was deliberately purchased when it was already dead for the purposes of experimental progress in the world of medicine slash forensics in Indonesia. However, if this was the case, why would the buyer dispose of it in the middle of a busy business district? You know, that's just my thoughts. If they did use this for, I don't know, for forensics, practicing autopsies and such, because they do use cadavers in medical school. My only thought is, why would this person dispose of this and place it on the sidewalk for everyone to see? Why would this person want to cause a national concern? Of course, due to the severity of what happened to the victim, this case caused a national worry, a national concern, and people were paranoid, especially the people from the nearby areas. So, okay, so let's talk about Okay, so let's talk about my theories and my opinions on this case. I think it's possible that it was a surgeon or a butcher. For me, both seem to be possible. Also, I'm not sure why the authorities are almost so sure that this was not done by a lone perpetrator, but instead by a group of individuals. I mean, it was just one victim, and it murder and the dismemberment and the discarding of the body or the remains could have been easily done by a single person. I mean, that's just my theory. Um, Also, I think it is highly possible that this person was not from Indonesia. It could be someone from a neighboring country with very similar features like Vietnam, the Philippines, and many other Southeast Asian countries because we do look quite similar to each other. And I think this is possible. I think this is possible because his fingerprints did not match anyone on the Indonesian database. And as a Filipino, I know how common it is for Filipinos and basically everyone to enter a country illegally and just stay there. So that's for me, that's the possible reason as to why this person had no loved ones nor no information on the database is because they went to that country illegally or they had just recently moved. Um, as to why this was done, I also personally believe that whoever did this was challenging the government or the police at least, because it really did seem like they wanted to get caught. I mean, if you're going to do something like this, why not be discreet about it? Why leave all of your evidence on the sidewalk of a business district? It's either you wanted to get caught or you wanted to prove that the local authorities are not capable of solving a case like this. And yeah, those are my thoughts and opinions. Of course, I would love to hear your theories as well. So please leave them in the comment section below so we could have a healthy discussion and maybe hopefully somehow help get closer in solving this case. Um yes, thank you so much for tuning in and I will see you guys on my next video.